Welcome to Good Earners reviewing The Sopranos. And here on Good Earners, we like to talk about family, finessing, finances, and feelings in the world of Tony Soprano, bringing you a new perspective, a fly perspective, and a black perspective. Obviously, by the time y'all hearing this, Mother's Day has happened, so things had to change up. I mean, we love our mothers, you know. We definitely didn't want to put them in Green Grove, right? So we
Don't
couldn't.
want to. It's a retirement
Oh, you're
community.
right. You're right. You're right. So we didn't want to put the moms in Green Grove, so we had to change up the recording to make sure that we could be there. Um, so we're gonna do something a little different. The back of the being. I'm gonna let Rich bring us into what we're gonna be reviewing today. I mean, what we're gonna be talking about today. But before we do that, we always like to acknowledge the supporters of ours, and so we have a couple of messages. One comes from the name we butchered last week. We thought IYKE was an acronym or some abbreviation,
That's
but
that's the actual name.
that's the actual name.
Oh snap, man! Our fault. Our fault.
Bro, straight up.
I'm
So
looking. I'm sitting here googling it. Like,
no,
hold on,
we
what's
yeah,
this
we
mean?
definitely was like yeah. So so
Oh, that's crazy.
so the email says, guys, it's me again, Ikena, but my name is Nigerian. Got a Nigerian.
Okay then.
Come on. Yeah. But he told us how it's pronounced, and it says Ike is a nickname for Ikena. You can pronounce it Ike Turner, no association.
No association.
No
That's
association.
very important. That's
That's
very key.
very important. Like, hey, we need to clear up things in this area. Nah. But shouts out to Ike. We appreciate it. I think they said they come from was it London? I think
Okay
last
then.
time we were saying, let me see on the other email. Yep, from London.
Okay then,
Fire.
bro.
Bruv. That's our bruv right there. So thank you
Bro.
for reaching out there. And then of course our good brother Chris Falone, our Italian brother, that's
My
our Italian
dog.
Jersey insider.
Are we getting an answer on the hair? Are we getting an answer?
He went further than that. So he sent us an image of his father, and I don't know if it's a buddy of his, but they're dressed up in the suits and the real Italian swag. And
Yeah.
he sent this picture. I was gonna send it to y'all, but he said that's my pops on the left. And he says he been rocking the freaking cul-de-sac since the 90s.
Hey, shout out to Pops,
Shout
man.
out to Pops, man. Hey, you know, that's how we do it. So then he went on a little further and he says, bro, by the way, next review pod gotta be The Wire. So I guess he's the one that
Mm,
kind of tapped in and said, which one should we do when we were referring to it?
yeah,
And
yeah,
of course,
yeah.
I had to tell him immediately, it's like, hey, I won't be, I can't even. And he was like, nah, bro, you got to be a part of it. I said, I'm gonna bring the show down because I don't, I say I don't like it enough. Like, I'm definitely gonna bring it down, but you know, because I think he's a big fan of the big three as we talk about here.
Yeah, man. I appreciate that.
Then he also says, I feel 100% on the Steve Buscemi. He says, do you think HBO was basically planning him in The Sopranos to build him up for the prior release of Boardwalk, which came out, I guess, began in '08? So you are more of
Board,
the.
did Boardwalk come out in '08?
I didn't realize it came out that far back.
I think it came out a little bit later than that. It's 2010. Okay, but
or
still, that's
20.
still
Oh,
earlier than what I
that's
remember
still
it.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But do you think that was kind of the setup? And then he also says, I don't know if it's true, but I heard Buscemi was supposed to do season 5 and 6 on Sopranos, but he was killed at the end. Spoiler alert, y'all. This is a spoiler episode. I'm sorry. We should have prefaced that. It'll be in the title. I'll make sure it be big
I'm gonna
capital
I'm
B.
gonna try not to make it a spoiler.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, I'm gonna try
really?
not to make it a spoiler. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
I'm really
Yeah.
interested to see how you gonna do this.
Well, that's why I said this is gonna be a brief episode. But keep going with what Chris was
Okay.
saying, and we'll talk about it.
But he says Tim Van Patten wanted him from Boardwalk. So, which we know,
Mm,
I believe he's one of the writers on the
yeah.
show, maybe a director. I'm not sure. I'm not that deep in these streets, but nonetheless, we appreciate that from Chris Falone as well as Ike. Thank y'all for reaching out. We appreciate y'all. Where y'all at? We waited 4 days. Now where y'all at? Uh,
Straight up, man. Yeah, Tim directed 18 episodes. I don't know if he created Boardwalk, but he directed more episodes than anybody else,
okay.
which makes me believe he probably created it. Um, so yeah, that makes sense. I thought it was interesting the clip you sent me of Gerard Carmichael on, I don't know if it was Fallon,
Mm-hmm.
but he kind of shared a similar sentiment with he was watching Sopranos for the first time, and he said it was like I can't remember what he referenced it to, but he said Steve Buscemi kind of threw it off.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then everything happened from there and blah blah blah. Like I said, it's apologies for the spoilers. However, this show is, it ended 25, started 25 years ago.
Yeah.
So slip ups will happen. It's not the biggest deal in my opinion. If you're watching for the first time, apology. Yeah, I guess it's good to put that in the episode description. There might be a couple spoilers.
Yeah.
It is a Back of the Bing episode, so if you are watching for the first time, go ahead and cut this one off and come back to it once the series is over.
I think I would say, not to interrupt, I would probably say we probably have more listeners that have watched the show than haven't. If we got listeners that have never watched the show, email us immediately. Definitely email us immediately. If you've never watched it and this is your first time and you chose this podcast to listen to it, hit us up, goodearnerpod@gmail.com or goodearnerpod_Sopranos. I would be thoroughly interested if this is the choice of a pod you chose to watch The Sopranos for the first time. So
yeah, no, that'd be dope, man. And thank you for that, Mo. Thank you for everyone out there tuning in, writing us, giving us their feedback. Chris Falone, we appreciate you. Friend of the show, family of the show,
family, yeah.
Ike, everybody out there, man. So thank you. That always means a lot. To echo Mo's sentiment, happy Mother's Day to all those. If we have any women listeners, I know we have a couple, and not just to the listeners, but also your mothers, your wives, their mothers, girlfriends of their mothers, aunts, all that kind of stuff. So thank you, man. With that being said, it wasn't until Thursday of this past week, where we were like, it is Mother's Day on Sunday. And now officially all three of us live out of town. Spike and myself have, as well as Mo, have mothers out of town. But Mo is a little bit different because he has a wife who's also a mother. So it's important to celebrate that. And we were thinking about it last minute, like, because for those wondering, we record on Sundays, which is actually Mother's Day. We decided we needed to switch it up. So we wanted to give you something. We didn't want to go, radio silent. So we wanted to give you something. So we're here with another Back of the Bing episode. It won't be a long episode. It'll just be a brief conversation as we're wrapping things up here. I say wrapping up, but it's still going to be a few months before we finish the series. But yeah, and we'll try to plan accordingly for like Father's Day and other events that happen on Sunday. This one just got away from us. We're human. We're human, man. It's a mindset. But
facts.
When we were talking in the chat, and shout out to Spike Lou.
Our brother.
Our good brother. Yeah, our good brother Spike Lou, who's not with us. It was one of those. Yeah, man, it was one of those. They hit me in the chat like, Rich, you can do a Saturday with Mo, you can do a Sunday with Spike. And it's given that me and Mo are both early birds. Like, man, let's go ahead and do a Saturday morning. So we're recording right now. But the premise right now pretty much is, listen, there's 32 episodes left that we have to review, which sounds crazy. 86 total. We're down at 32 left. And I wanted to just have a brief conversation about most anticipated storylines. And we can throw in, this is a curveball, Mo, because I didn't mention this to you, the most anticipated episodes that you're willing to discuss. I know I asked a question about season 5 between a regular around the margins and long-term parking, but I think there's other episodes throughout this series that I am looking forward to discussing. And I wanted to kind of have a conversation about that. So with that being said, we're still in season 5. We've only done 2 episodes. I'll tell you right now, I'll go ahead and lead things off with most anticipated storylines.
We doing spoiler or no spoiler?
As long as you remember to put the spoiler alert.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna put it. It's gonna be in the title.
Yeah, okay, man. All right. Well, so one of the main things I'm looking forward to play out is, and if you've seen the show, you know this, New York becomes much more of a central player in the series from season 5 moving forward. Much more than they were in the previous 4 seasons. And I am looking forward to the power struggle that occurs, see who comes out on top, as well as what proceeds after that, because the top spot isn't for everyone. The top spot is a difficult position to hold. And I think it's kind of wild that the person that gets the top spot doesn't get to enjoy it for too long. As far as being on the outside and the way this season ends, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that's always fascinating. So I'm looking forward to, and when I say the power struggle, I mean obviously the Carmine versus Johnny Sack war.
Mm-hmm.
There's a moment in the episode that I stepped on last week, if you heard my cold open. But there's a moment where you kind of see who Phil Leotardo is,
Mm-hmm.
how he goes about his business.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, then, like, it was one of the greatest, one of the great, I don't want to say great, I don't want to hype it, but one of the great character intros.
Mm-hmm.
I know we saw him at the funeral briefly, and he told a little joke here and there, but it was really just the way he carried it and the way he goes about handling business for Johnny Sack. Mo, is Johnny Sack and Phil Leotardo the best 1-2 punch in the show? Is that a better 1-2 punch than Tony and Sil or Tony and Chris?
It's definitely better than Tony and Chris.
It is, right?
We love Tony and Chris, but Chris is like that rookie or that second year player that, okay, he made a crazy stride. He's now, he's the point guard. I'm not gonna call him Penny Hardaway and Shaq, but I would say that he made strides early, but he still was making a lot of mistakes, even though he was a very talented player. So I wouldn't give Chris that tandem. He never quite got there. When he did, they wasn't really a tandem no more, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But it was always one of the greatest what ifs, the uncle and nephew. But it's a tough one between Tony and Seal. It's a real tough one. I mean, they are seamless almost. They have one interaction of two interactions. I guess we already seen one of them. The basement scene where it's like that you deliberately go against me. But
right.
I gotta watch closer to the Johnny Sack and Phil Leotardo tandem. I think on paper it's better. On paper, them two are better to me. But when I got to look at how it plays out a little bit more. I've always been interested in them too, but I've always kind of watched it from the lens of Phil is on his way, and so I never really appreciated it as much as I should when you look at that tandem.
Yeah, that's a good point because it's kind of hard to judge and gauge because Phil's outside, where Sil is more of a legit old school consigliere.
Mm-hmm.
He and I'm not saying Phil wouldn't put in work. We'll see later in the season Phil putting in work for something that needs to be done. However, Phil is more active, fresh home, more of a soldier than a consigliere. He is his number two, but I don't know how much advice he's giving him because Phil's on go. I will say that you don't want Phil to be the guy giving you advice because he's ready to go. He is emotional, like Johnny Sack, in my opinion. We see some things that happened to him this season. Rightfully so. I don't want to downplay it because he lost something and he's upset about it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That's an interesting question to take a look at and think about in the long-term form. But I think that I'm ready for everything to play out. And to your point, what you just said, it's difficult for me to look at this season and the introduction of Phil from president in the moment perspective. I know what happens with Phil. I know where Phil's headed. And I'm looking for the buildup of that versus being like, oh, okay, then yeah, let's just see where this character goes. I already know, so it's kind of hard to kind of put that into perspective.
Yeah. But I'm definitely, as we doing the review for season 5, I'm watching very closely this time. I'm watching every little bit of like how he's moving. I'm gonna watch very as far as that tandem goes. Something I'm looking forward to, man, is episode in particular, man. I don't know. Okay, well, let me say this, and I talk about an episode in particular. I don't think it gets talked about enough. It might kind of tie in more to like where I am in my life, but what I'm looking forward to, and I never thought I would, but I'm looking forward to Dark Tone. And the reason I'm looking forward to Dark Tone is because Light Tone is over with. Like all of the good family stuff, and we're going therapy together, and all of the good moments, like we're in at the end. We spoke about it on the pilot. They spoke about it on the show, obviously, where it came from. All of those happy moments, laughter, the Sunday dinners, all that, everything at this point just doesn't feel the same. Like within the show, within reviewing the show, and just how we feel as viewers, it's never going to feel the same. You could tell that like they're going through the motions. You could see even what we saw just in this season with Janice and Bobby, and they were doing the Sunday dinner, and they were split between Carmela and Tony. Is like everything, nothing feels the same. anymore as far as that family aspect, and really both sides of the family. So I have to look forward to it just because we're not going back. It ain't no point of like, oh, I'm like when I first watched it, that's why everybody like, oh, it felt like the tone got more darker and this and that. Yeah, it does. Even I mean, well, David Chase doesn't see it that way, but I think the consensus is kind of the same. We see it, even how it, especially when you get season 6, how it's shot, the color changes. You know what I mean? Completely.
Yeah.
Cold blue, like So I look forward to that. But the particular episode I'm looking forward to this season is Marco Polo. Because for the same reasons, we get so much dark. We're headed towards the dark tone, and Marco Polo is one of the light moments that I really just enjoy. I'm so here for it. I love a good makeup breakup story, kind of like in a slow build towards it. Like I really enjoy, and even then we know it kind of hits you with the 52 fake out, but like I enjoyed that whole thing, bro. Like that, how it was shot, the pool, the barbecue. It just, I've spoke before. I'm a big fan of the family stuff.
Even absolutely. I got a question to ask you, but before I do, I want to comment on that. Marco Polo is, I love the way you put that. It's a light spot in a season that's dark, and the show, like you said, is just going to continuously get darker. As it goes on these last 32 episodes.
Yeah.
Marco Polo has so many layers to it. Obviously, there's that classism between Italians, between the friend that, Carmelo's mom, that family friend and everything. The class aspect of Hugh. Shout out to Hugh for saying, Junior Soprano's a piece of shit. But for those who don't know, like I said, there will be spoilers. But he was having a surprise party, and Junior, being the miserable old man that he is, Bobby tells him about it, and he calls Hugh to let him know he can't make it, even though he knows it's a surprise party. He shouldn't be saying anything. Bro. He's seeing so much death. He's like, I think what's the quote? At this age, it's a surprise that we're alive every morning. That we get out of bed. Yeah. And he used that to Hugh. So he told Hugh about the surprise party, which obviously he ends up letting Carmela and his mom, his wife, know. But one of the things that he asked about Tony, and then once he found out Tony wasn't going to be there, he said, "I'm not coming when the man of the house isn't here." And I just like that familial, whether you call it Italian or just the family aspect of that, just the respect kind of factor. Like, I don't care what's going on. I know y'all separated, and I'm not trying to get in the middle of that. However, 20 plus years we've been having events at this house, or however long they owned it. You've been hosting us. Tony's been a great host. He's been on the grill. I'm not going to come here when that man's not here. Yeah, it doesn't sit right in my spirit, and I appreciate Hugh for that.
Yeah, I do too.
But just all of that stuff comes out. All of that stuff comes out in Marco Polo. And even they hit us with a pump fake because you think it's sweet, and it takes a little while to get where it's going to be.
Yeah, exactly. And
I think that's realistic because I don't think Tony knew how to handle that. I don't think either one of them did, because this is like, it was unexpected.
It hurt my feelings for real.
Well, yeah, and because I haven't been in my house. We have our moment. I'm waking up in my bed for the first time in a while, and I can't stay, or I don't even know how to have the conversation about am I staying. So I sneak out, and I sneak out like you a gumar. I grab my pants, and I'm out about my business. I drop AJ off instead of coming in. I'm giving you the wave and I'm backing out. Like it's just one of those weird things. So I love how they did that. It wasn't just an immediate.
Yeah.
There's terms and I guess that kind of leads into what one of my next things I'm looking forward to. But before I do, you mentioned, the darkness of the show. What do you think the origin was? What do you think it switched?
Where to start?
Yeah, where did the darkness start? What do you think it switched?
I spoke to it before, but whoever did this. Season 4, episode 9. Whoever did this, I feel like they planted the seed, like, oh, this is dark tone, when it was like they clearly showed us like he had a kid in a hospital that was fighting for his life that possibly could become a vegetable. We're talking about Ralph Cifaretto, and they pulled our heartstrings, especially that first time watching ever, and you see it's like, dang, Tony not about to Tony not about to do that. Not now. This is not. And he still does it. He still whacks him, knowing
Hmm.
that he went to see the son and everything, seen his ex-wife, broke up a fight and everything, and he's still going to kill him over a horse. Like that, you don't fully know that he burned up. And that's why I said that's where the switch came. They kind of tucked it though. Like everything else after that, we still feel like, oh, Tony's still regular. But I feel like that was a tucked thing where it's like well, I go into that later, but like I just feel like that's where it began to me. Like they didn't go back to that in that season. After that, they had 4 episodes and they didn't. But I feel like that was like the turn.
Yeah, I already took his horse. Um, that's interesting. That's interesting. I agree with you. You have been consistent in saying that, and you're absolutely right. That is the turn for his dark period. Is there ever a moment, especially rewatching this and looking at this from a different perspective, reviewing it in long form? Is there a moment where you don't like Tony, or has that already happened? Where objectively you're looking at him as a human being versus Tony Soprano, and you're like, man, I don't like this guy. Like you were a scumbag.
The not liking Tony begins for me at probably Cold Cuts.
Cold cuts. All right, I'm glad you mentioned that, and I'll get into my next thing that I'm looking forward to. But cold cuts, I'm trying to categorize Tony's behavior. Like, are you
Yeah.
childish? Are you yearning for something, or are you just plain cold and mean? Like, what was the purpose of that final scene at the dinner table in Cold Cuts? And I'm trying to remember the rest of the episode, but if you know that episode, it's famous for. Um, I wonder what Harpo's having his Sunday dinner. Like
Mm-hmm.
that, Janice and the anger management. It's almost like it's the definition of misery loves company.
Yeah. And at that moment, it's like that fully showed you that Tony was not okay with people making progress without him. I felt like I that
Mm-hmm.
was the first time we really seen. It's like, oh, Tony's really not okay with people making progress because you knew how damaged y'all was. Like, remember you go back to season 2 finale where she just whacked Richie and she was like, what's wrong with us? And that's like a sentimental moment to me where she's like, what's wrong with us? And he kind of gave a little bit about therapy and saying that like mom hated happiness, dad always wanted to be happy, and just like how damaged Janice and Tony and Barbara, we don't really know because she kind of probably maybe got the best of it because they were too old to be that way with her. But it was
It,
just, yeah, that was to me was like, damn, bro, like how much she's, because like as much as we people hate Janice, like you still got to recognize she is just as, she grew up in the same household with Tony and they had such a difficult upbringing. They both, I mean, terrible people, but they had a difficult upbringing and she's a woman. So, she really had to fend. She didn't have no kind of favoritism, being in a good old boys club. So she definitely had it harder, I feel like, than Tony did. And so when she finally finds her way to try to go to anger management, feel like, oh, this is what the source of my pain is. This is the source of my problem. And Tony notices like, oh, she's going to change. It's like, oh, no, now you ain't. Like, so that to me is why I for sure, like, I don't like you. Totally.
yeah. Now let me ask you this, just to kind of play. Let me play the other side. I
Okay.
believe it was in Cold Cuts
Mm-hmm.
when Tony has it out with Janice in the living room, um, about her leaving. Like, you left, I was here. You went to go do X, Y, and Z and the whole nine. And I don't know, maybe he feels justified for treating Janice that way, and there's some pent up anger. It's
Mm-hmm.
just a very fascinating. It's I don't want to say it's one of the first times, but it's 100% Tony just being a bully just for the sake of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the fact that he's being a bully; it's how much peace he gets from it. Like the ending of that Cold Cuts episode is almost like a Mister Rogers neighborhood. Like you see the leaves and the nice neighborhood, and he's got his hands in his pocket, just damn near
Mm-hmm.
skipping down the
bro,
street after
bro,
after causing chaos.
freaking Sesame Street over here.
Yeah, man, I'm about to cause chaos and I'm gonna leave. So that's interesting. But I
Remember
want
when
to get
too? Remember when too? I think just
yeah.
being thirsty for the kill. Like it seemed like he was thirsty for, like, it was way. I mean, dude already died. I'm not gonna say the character, but like he's already dead. I
Hmm.
believe at that point, and it just like how thirsty he is to whack Paulie. Like, don't get me wrong, he was well in this right, but it seemed like he just had like a bloodthirst. Like, it's the
Hmm.
weirdest thing. When you watch it again, it's like, man, it's like he really thirsty. Like, I just need you to say one thing, I'm gonna kill you right now. Like, I need to kill. That's how it felt to me, bro. Like on some real vampires type, like, bro. I've edited that video on one of my pages, and I just when I was watching, I was like, dang, bro, it's like he was mad thirsty to whack Paulie.
100%. 100%, man. That's a great point. He was. That's a great point.
Boy.
So one of the things that I'm looking forward to is Carmella's run.
Hmm.
I'm really looking forward to Carmella's run this season, mainly because, all right.
Talking about single life?
Yes. I'm listening. All right, and here's why. Here's why, Mo. I'm looking forward to single life Carmella because I do at times feel like I'm hard on Carmella.
Hmm.
Maybe us as a collective are
For
hard on
sure.
Carmella.
Yeah, we are.
Um, yeah, we're hard on Carmella, and not rightfully so in every sense. It's more
Hmm.
of a just a thing with her.
Hmm.
I don't think she deserves as much as the criticism that she gets.
Hmm.
So I do feel a little bit vindicated when Carmella has her own indiscretions,
Uh
and
huh.
we have an actual character
Uh huh.
calling her out for the same things we call her out for. Because it's one of those weird things where you feel like, man, am I piling on Carmella? And then
Yeah.
she gets involved with the character,
Hmm.
and then he sees the same things we see. I
But
think you're a
and that
user.
ain't fair. See, that's what make it not fair though, because it's like, oh, everybody else can finesse in this world, but I can't.
It's
Like
not that
Carmella,
she can't. It's not about the finesse. And I don't think
uh,
Carmella knows how to properly finesse.
she don't. But I can't fault her for trying. That's why
Yeah, I'm not
I
mad at her
never.
for trying.
No, I don't like dude for that. Like Wexler, we could say his name. They don't know. Some people that
Yeah,
know Wexler,
Wegler.
Wegler.
Yeah.
I just he pisses me off so much that it's hard to give bail. Like, oh, you used me for for your weapon. That's the only thing that you had. It was just like bro, you know what I mean? It's like I don't know.
Hmm.
I mean, and we definitely get a great shot. We definitely gonna get a Mo moment there.
Yeah, yeah,
We
yeah,
definitely
yeah,
getting a
yeah,
Mo
yeah.
moment. Yeah, that's
Walk,
definitely one of
walking to the
those.
bathroom.
Yeah, yeah, walk that walk, baby.
I just and if you've never seen it, obviously you shouldn't be listening to this. But if you had never seen it before, it's that mindset of how does one divorce a Tony Soprano or someone like Tony Soprano? Is that even possible? Which we find out the answer to. But
Hmm.
she tried and she realized like this is Tony runs the world that I'm in. And that's a
Yeah.
crazy spot to be in. There is no 50-50. There is no equal. This is my world, and I let you have some rights.
She had to leave Jersey, right? She almost had to leave like Jersey completely and get lawyers outside of like he's not
He
connected
got to
all the way around the world. Like, I mean, I know there's probably mob guys all over, but he's not connected. Like, I mean, they're a
well, that's
glorified crew. You know what I mean?
you have to file in your state. So
Oh,
you
you
at least
do?
have to,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So you at least have to leave your city.
Okay,
And
got you.
I
But
think
he
the
might.
more, and which we see, the more people find out who you're divorcing, the more they're going to be like, you know what? I'm actually busier than what I thought. I
Mm-hmm,
don't know if I got the time to take on this case.
mm-hmm,
And she realizes she's stuck, which is also another reason I'm looking forward to the Carmella angle
mm-hmm.
because it's probably the most. I don't want to say the most I've liked her. I like Carmella. I'm hard on her, but I'm
I actually
not.
like her.
I don't hate her. I'm about to say I don't hate Carmella. I like her. But at the end of this season, season 5, I guess she finally has that this is what it is moment.
Yeah.
Like no matter what, this is just my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I at least better come up with my terms and conditions before anything goes back to how
Do
it
you
is.
do you
And
think when she gets to that point, and you remember that crying scene where the war is on, Jersey and New York war is up, when she
mhm.
cries and like Tony, you just walk around like there's not a big piano hanging over your head, and she's like you know, and after that, one of our big characters, one of our capos, had been killed. Do you
Mhm.
think that she had been back in love with Tony again? Had they built back towards their love, or do you think it never went back there? She just accepted the deal that I'm going to be with him. I'm not in love with him. Like when she said, "I don't
Well,
love you anymore." Like,
I think no, I think that tragedy brings people together.
okay,
I think
great
the
point.
events that took place at the beginning of season 6A.
Mm-hmm.
I think that not knowing how this is going to turn out, not knowing if I'm going to have you around.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she even, I think there's a scene with Dr. Melfi when Carmela
Oh yeah,
visits Dr. Melfi, because remember,
yeah.
she runs into her in the grocery store
Mm-hmm.
and she's defensive. I got plenty of people to talk to. Then she ends up seeing her. She makes a mention to Dr. Melfi, like, I told him I loved him. I can't even remember the last time I said that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that made her more mindful of it. I'm trying to think of the switch because after that event took place, they seem to be in a pretty good space. Now is that because Tony didn't have the physical capability to run the streets like he was?
Mm-hmm.
It took a while to gain that back.
Yeah.
But it seemed to be okay. But yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I think she re-found her love for Tony,
Yeah. I
or
think
at
she
least
embraced. Sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. My bad. No, I'm sorry. Interrupt. She refound her love
No,
with Tony.
I was just gonna say, or at least found comfort with her situation.
Okay.
She accepted it. Sometimes you just have to accept the position you're in, and
Yeah.
that puts all that everything else after that doesn't matter. So maybe it was that.
And speaking of accepting your position, you know, the thing about Sopranos, when we talk about dark, it ain't just like angry and menacing, but there's sadness for me, genuinely, like watching it, because it's the good old days are behind us, which is very reminiscent of our own lives. When we talk about the episode like The Ride, we get one of the last great moments with Christopher and Tony. But the moment they rob the Vipers, we're the Vipers, you know, they rob them for some boxes of wine. And they pretty much every time they see each other, they're joking about the same thing. And it's like they felt good in the moment. That was a thrill for them because it reminded them back in the day when they're trying to make their bones. Like, oh, we used to do little petty stuff like this, get this and get in position to become a made guy. And I could tell that like they're so far from that now. They're like executives of the mob, so to speak. And they don't get this level of excitement. They're in the mundaneness of things. And just to realize, like, I mean, we get the big reveal of the conversation they had, but like, just to realize it's like, dang, bro, it's the good days are behind us. We don't have nothing to really even talk about. That's one of those sad moments for me, man.
Do you think that happened in Cold Cuts? Remember, there's a great shot in Cold Cuts when Chris is leaving the farm because the
Oh
two
yeah,
Tonys are
that is,
just
yeah.
clowning them, and you don't see the mob guys be emotional, especially about words.
Mm-hmm.
But Chris was torn up.
That
It's
hit
almost
home.
yeah, man. Chris is torn up,
That hit home
and
for
I
me.
wonder if that was the beginning of that. Like I said, the events, Tony getting shot at the beginning of the season 6, it kind of put a lot of things on pause.
Mm-hmm.
I put a lot of things on pause because if that doesn't happen, when tragedy hits, you're more sympathetic, you're more um, you're more eager to just kind of let things flow, like let them just go by the wayside.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'll never forget that shot of Christopher driving and those
Never.
tears welling up in his eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, is this the moment where and I can't remember where, I think I know it's this season. I can't remember when he tells Adriana, that's the man I'm going to hell for. You know what I mean? Tony Soprano, that's the man I'm going to hell for.
He
tells
already did. He already did that, didn't he? Didn't he do that
No.
when he killed, when he said, this is my father's killer? I thought he already did that.
He's going to do it. There's a moment where he's upset with Tony about something. I think it's about when, you know what it was? Tony gave Tony B the casino.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And Chris was upset about it. And they kind of hashed it out and talked it out, or at least Chris thought they talked it out. Remember when they went up there to dig those bodies up, it was Tony B and Chris. And Chris was being cold. And then Tony kind of just told him, like, look, man, like, I know you're upset about this. I know you're upset about that. I did 20 years for this family. 15 years, whatever it was, I have a right. And they seemed to have built a bond because Tony B started cracking on Tony and started making the jokes.
Yeah.
And when they go to have dinner later, because Tony pulls up on him, Tony B tells the joke, but he says it about somebody else when he previously said it about Tony. Yeah. And Chris is just getting weak. It's like their little secret. It's like their little inside thing.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
But it was a flip because it immediately flipped on Chris, and he wasn't expecting it. And they do a good job of talking about the years, I guess, of being little bro, being little cuz. Like y'all picking on me, y'all been picking on me my whole life, and I'm tired of it. I'm not him. I'm not that little guy no more.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
them not having anything to talk about, them just being in that space. That's a
Right.
tough spot to
That's
be
a
in.
tough spot because that speaks to the end concept where this thing is over. We're getting more close to civilian life than we know it.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the
Bless you.
Vito storyline. One of my favorite storylines, bro. To be honest, like I think that we make jokes and we allude to Vito. Again, this is a spoiler episode, so I'm just gonna go and get it out there. What we've alluded to this whole time is that we're gonna find out Vito's gay, and it's one of the most controversial storylines for obvious reasons for people that identify like Vito. But why it's one of the best storylines for me because of the complexity of it. I think I always go like this is one of the most complex things characters to me in this entire show. Like, and then just going from Gino to Vito, and again we us trying to kind of follow a through line of, oh, has he always been this, and we try to pick up things about him, and then now we'll finally get to the big reveal. Of course, it's hilarious moments, and it's not because he's gay; it's because the excuses he makes. That's the funniest
That's
part.
what's
Like,
funny
you make
part.
some
Yeah.
hilarious excuses about medication and how you was tripping. Now you was just it's a joke. It's like the length of a joke that I mean, length of an excuse you would make to hide that this is who you are. It makes it so funny, bro. And even like when he leaves and like every time just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. And and we'll talk about it. There's a deleted scene that they took out that I do feel we need to acknowledge because it
Okay.
speaks to why Vito came back. And they took that scene out for whatever reason. But I think it happens between the Vito coming back and I think Tony and Seal were talking, but it's something around that time where Tony and Seal were talking, but there was a conversation Vito and Tony had. It's a deleted scene that just like there's the deleted scene of Big P talking to the feds or whatever, at
Mm-hmm.
like a conference table or whatever when he first got picked up. But this one to me, they should have, in my opinion, they should have kept it because it was a little more essential. But it is like kind of telling us why he's coming back or his belief.
Yeah. I, everything you said was spot on. I think that in 2004, when this originally aired,
Mm-hmm,
it was a little bit taboo to have that
mm-hmm,
conversation, but that's what makes The Sopranos,
mm-hmm,
because it's never been about the mob activity in regards to like the hits and whatever else you want to call it. It's
mm-hmm,
about the inner structure and how does this work?
mm-hmm,
And that's something that, they frown upon, they look down on. So what happens if you do have one of those?
mm-hmm,
Or somebody like that who identifies as this is a part of this thing of ours, and what's going to be the reaction and what decision needs to be made, and even the way Tony looks about things, like, are you going to take care of his kids, his family? Like, it's not as easy as this is banned, let's get rid of them. There's layers to it, and the show does a great job of having the conversation and using Tony versus other people to kind of say, are we even upset? I think Patsy even had a line like, I couldn't care less. And getting pushback of like, well, maybe you were,
mm-hmm.
whatever.
Let's not
And,
forget Fat Dom.
yeah, Fat Dom.
You up on this, ain't
Exactly.
you, Dom? Like,
Right.
bro, that lie, I can't wait to get there. Dang, you really up on this, huh? Like, dude, yeah.
uh, and the show did we find out, so unidentified black males,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's episode 9, is
Yeah.
the Finn discovery.
Oh, okay.
And we don't even this doesn't even come to a head until Mr. and Mrs. John
No pun
Sacramone.
intended. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, my goodness, yeah. Hey, but it doesn't come about until I think Mr. and Mrs. John Sacramone. So that's in early season 6A. And
Episode
that's when
5. Boy, they tucked
yeah.
that.
So they tucked it for a while. So we there's the jokes and the speculation, but we know as viewers for a fact
Yeah.
season 5, episode 9, this is what's going down. But it's not
Mm-hmm.
addressed, or nobody knows about it until season 6, episode 5.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a nice little, I guess, cat and mouse that they play
Mm-hmm.
about everything that's going on. And to your point, like you said, the Vito storyline is just funny because anytime somebody's in a jam and they just can't be honest about it, like your first
Yeah.
response is, it's a joke.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man. I always look at the
I was just
perspective of
playing
the other
like
guy. I think Sal Ionescu or whatever his name was,
yeah.
the guy who made the discovery.
Mm-hmm.
I always look at it from his perspective. And I
Yeah.
love it. Like every single Vito, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck are you
Bro,
doing?
yeah, bro, it's discovering, bro, as a grown individual, discovering something about somebody, like, just randomly, like, when you were in your regular civilian thoughts and you catch up like, yo,
the fuck are
bro, what
you?
are you, bro?
What the fuck are you doing? It's a
Like, yeah,
joke.
it's a joke. Hey, come on, like,
I was here.
yeah.
Like, you start saying stuff that don't make sense. It's a
Dog,
joke. I was here.
bro, yeah, it didn't make, yeah, like,
Yeah, it didn't
you
make
all
any
the way,
sense. So yeah,
you in full costume, like, that's, oh
yeah,
man, that's
The
good.
Vito storyline
Yo
is
story, yeah.
yeah, that's interesting.
What? Let me ask this. I know you and Spike, y'all not really emotional dudes like that. Y'all have emotions like all of us, but y'all not really emotional dudes. But are there episodes that, again, not necessarily a personal emotional attachment, but like episodes coming up that kind of pull at your heartstrings? Someone's like, wow, that, dang, that's rough. Because I definitely got some episodes that come to mind when I think about it. Of course, the low hanging fruit of long term parking.
So there's an episode, I can't remember which one it is, but I know it ends with Tony looking at Junior like, "Don't you love me?" That is a little that gets me a little bit because uh
Yeah, that
your
was.
family's your family, man, and it's just sometimes no matter how hard you look for that love, it's just not going to come there, even when you think you're getting close to it,
Mm-hmm,
or your version of love. And obviously, Junior got other stuff going on with his mental, but
mm-hmm,
just that Tony's so and Dr. Melfi hits on this. Tony's so forgiving of Junior. And he really wants that, especially with not having his dad around. He kind of wants Uncle Junior to be
mm-hmm.
his guy,
Yeah.
and he just never got that. He never got that relationship. It's just never panned out the way we think it should have. So that's a little bit more. You mentioned long-term parking. I don't really,
Here's why it is for me. If we tie long term parking into season 6, the ride, right?
Okay, yeah.
It's not so much. It's not so much what happens like when they whack that individual. It's just more on the lines of like, you genuinely all the way through this never thought it could go this way. It's like any civilian where like you're breaking the law and you have no idea what happens when you get caught breaking the law, right? And it's, for me, more than anything, it's like, I mean, it's a spoiler episode, but Christopher's like thinking like, he didn't want to do that. He was trying to do the right thing from a mob standpoint, just like in the early season, I think season 2, when Tony told him, like, bro, I'm gonna give you 15 minutes, go outside and think about what you really want to do. And again, like Chris always having these internal thoughts was like, you really don't want to do this, but you don't know any other life. And here comes a moment here. This is the love of your life. Y'all didn't put your hands on. Y'all didn't had an abusive relationship. Y'all didn't had ups and downs, but you went to rehab. You didn't have Gumar. She is stuck with you. Y'all engaged. She can't have children, but y'all still figuring it out together. And there's a decision that has to be made. Like, do we run off and leave this life, or do I tell Tony? And he makes that decision, and clearly it was the wrong decision for him. And that to me is where the sadness comes in, because it's like, this is the love of your life.
Question: is the ride the episode where we get the other half of long-term parking?
Mm-hmm.
That other vantage point?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. If you can, yeah, when you said it like that, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you got to have that part.
It's damn, Mo, that was a great explanation, because I immediately thought to the one party who ended up getting, meeting the demise, but it's really about Chris and his emotions.
Yeah.
And I think that even goes back to what I mentioned earlier in the scene where when Chris drove back and was in the car. Like, that's emotional, man. That's
yeah, that's there.
Yeah, especially knowing once you watch this, maybe not in real time your first watch, but once you watch it and you know what kind of is happening, it does make you, like I said, even that line, like, this is a guy I'm going to hell for.
bro, this is your girl. Like we've been in relationships, and like this is your girl, and we know that when you're in relationships, sometimes I mean, you as the man gonna make mistakes, and the woman that you're with will make mistakes, and sometimes it's a costly mistake. But like, even though it's costly and y'all have a code, it's like you break kind of out of that for a second. It's just like, yo, this is the love of my life, though. I can't picture life without her. But now I got to operate off of this code, and do not do it, and it's irreversible. And it's
Uh-huh.
like, that's where I feel like the line of division began, and it never went back because of his decision. And man, it just, goodness gracious, bro. Like it's just one of those things for me always. It's not so much her, it's just more um it's just more of what that means for him. And like even when he tries to set up later with his later marriage and children, you could tell he's just not present. He's
Yeah,
just
he's not.
he's not present, and it's a sad thing. So that's one of those sad things for me for sure. I wouldn't say stage 5. I don't think it was sad, but it had a moment again. For me, it's just the end idea when we look at Johnny Sacramone and we look at him trying to make the best of. That's what a wedding happens, right? That's all in that
No,
episode.
stage five. No, no, no. Wedding is
Oh, the
Mr. and Mrs.
Sacramones.
John Sacramone,
Gotcha, gotcha,
which
gotcha.
is which is an
Season,
incredible episode.
yeah,
That's 6A.
6A. Yeah,
Stage
so
five is
we
six
wait.
B.
Yeah, we wait. Okay, yeah, and we still count the A and B. Um, yeah, well then, yeah, Mr. and Mrs. Sacramone. Just, I mean, that
It's an
whole
incredible
thing.
episode.
Yeah, and it's just like I get it. Like my estimation of Johnny Sack has plummeted. Funny line, but it's like it's so real because there's these moments where everybody has a moment where they're not macho when we start getting to season 6.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has this. We're gonna see a Paulie moment when we get the big reveal for Paulie and he's crying in a hospital. He's not a macho guy right there. We get Silvio and Silvio has asthma problems. You're not a macho. You're not that macho now. Like all of these, like, we get the, Bobby stuff. It's like, you're in love with the train tracks. And, everybody has these non-macho moments. And it's great, but like, there's just a lot of sadness coming.
Hey,
The winter is coming.
Tone, there's something good that came out of this. She called Sophia her daughter. I don't give a fuck. Okay, I do give a fuck.
Right.
That's one of my favorite little moments between Tony and Bobby. I think that's cold cuts as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, cold cuts
That's a
too.
cold
Okay.
cuts. Yeah,
Okay.
that's that moment that they had, that exchange. Yeah, because it was the whole anger management thing.
I mean, of course, Heidi and Kennedy.
Yeah. So what I want to go into is, man, you were just mentioning it about this. Everybody having even John, even Phil.
Yeah.
Even Phil at the end of 6A has a moment.
Yeah.
Where it's not always. So you're right about that. Everybody kind of has their guard down, and you're not as macho as you think you are and want to be, because
they're not in them times.
Not in them times anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So it is pretty interesting. One thing you mentioned it, I have to say this on Spike's behalf. I know he's not with us, but I know we'd be remiss to not mention the Paulie finding out his true self.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's one of his
I know
favorites.
that's one of Spike's favorite storylines, and he's talked about all the buildup we've gotten to this point. Now that's one. You asked me earlier things that make me a little bit emotional. That's one that does.
Oh wow. Okay.
From her perspective.
Oh.
Tony even tells him, man, that woman raised you. How many times should she bail you out the vein? For his, I get it. I understand that.
Yeah,
That's a lot to take in. But man, I really feel bad for her throughout that process.
See, that's crazy.
Yes,
I don't feel anything. That's the craziest.
You
Like,
don't?
no.
I think it's those tears. Like when that man throw that TV out the window, like her tears. I feel, oh man, I get it, but I do still feel she still stepped up.
But you like, look at how old I am as Paulie. I'm so old, and y'all let it ride this long. Y'all gonna let it die. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like literally. So
Tony or Paulie has there's that moment. Like you mentioned, he was crying in the hospital, and I started laughing because I thought about I forget his son name, Dick Barone's son. When Tony was so mad at not Tony, but Paulie hit him and said,
"Oh man,
you fucking mama's boy." Like he's using
bro.
that anger towards him because
your
his mom was
your knees.
Yeah. But yeah, Tony, I mean, Paulie, I love that he had a scene to kind of when he had his one-on-one with Tony, like this stays between us,
Mm-hmm.
and just says, man, I don't even know who I am, like my whole life. Like some
Mm-hmm.
guy named Russ, like I don't like everything about me. I don't even know my last, like my real last name or
Mm-hmm.
where I came from and yada yada yada. So it's just interesting. I have one that I this is a minor and a funny one that I can't wait to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Benny versus Artie.
Oh yeah, Artie. Yeah, yeah, yeah. My
Yeah,
guy.
Benny versus Artie Bucco is uh is one of my favorite moments of the entire series.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like it's super long, but just Artie in general is just funny to me.
Yeah, Artie's a
He's just
yeah.
hilarious to
Johnny
me.
V, man. Come on.
Yeah, man.
I look forward to one of our favorite. Me and Spike talked about it in very early reviews, but the last moment of light to me, Sopranos home movies.
Yeah,
It's the
yeah,
last.
classic.
I mean, it's the last, and it's 6B, the begin opener. It's the
Hmm.
last moment of lightness, and it's so enjoyable. But then, of course, it's going to have a dark turn where it reminds you that here we are, and
Oh,
yeah.
Sopranos take it too far.
Yeah, that's my wife. You know what I'm saying? But it's such a fun episode. It's one of the episodes you just want to live in for so long because you love, of course it's gonna take a turn, but you love like the singing and the drinking and they're out shooting guns and even what Tony has Bobby do for real, like pop his cherry, so to speak, pause. But like, yeah, like all of that was like, it was just really good seeing them go out to the little vacation cabin, and it's the last moment of lightness that we're gonna get in this world for real. Like even the conversation on the boat that's still haunting. You probably never hear it when it
I was
comes.
I was just about to bring that up. I was just about to bring that up. Even that moment,
Yes.
yeah. Uh, I can't wait till we get. I'm sure at the end of this we'll have a back of the Bing where we
Mm-hmm.
rank our personal favorites,
Mm-hmm.
top tens or whatever.
Absolutely.
Sopranos whole movie. I wonder where that falls. I think it's definitely top 10 off the top of my head. It's got to be
Yeah.
top 10.
Yeah, it's definitely top 10.
Um, yeah. So I don't know if you have anything else. I do want to talk about episodes that I'm looking forward to discussing. But do you have
Mm-hmm.
any other storylines that you want to mention? Obviously, this whole 6B and how this whole show wraps up.
Yeah, the war. That's pretty much the
Yeah, the
war of
war.
it.
That's yeah. I don't. We don't have to get too much into
Yeah, I
that, but
think that
that's
might be it. The war. Of course, Chris, Paulie. I guess I'm looking forward to y'all. I know y'all hate it, but I do look forward to the hospital part of it. I know y'all. This is
so.
snoozing for y'all.
Oh, I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that, Mo. All right. So let's before we get into episodes, let's talk about this real quick. Dare I say, I think we have three more dream episodes in this entire series.
Mm-hmm.
We have the test dream, which comes at the end of this season. And
Yeah.
then we have two dream scenes at the beginning, episodes 2 and 3 of 6A.
Join the club and mayhem.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Really good episodes. Really good episodes. When it's time to rate those,
Mm-hmm.
some of them might be borderline. One of them might be borderline made.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
The
you feel
test dream,
differently about them.
I feel differently about them now.
I thought you had the same sentiment as Spike. I know Spike is like, bro, get
I
me
hundred
out of
percent,
here.
I 100% did. And then when I was just preparing for this and just kind of thinking about things and looking forward to things, I love the perspective
Me
that they
too.
took.
Mm-hmm.
Even the test dream, which the test dream I was really out on for a long time.
Yeah, I gotta
which comes at the end of
revisit that.
this.
I gotta revisit that. Well, we will be revisiting it, obviously, but
I I like it. I like it. I like
okay.
it. It's still a little bit. It's a little weird, but for everything that happens,
Mm-hmm.
it's almost similar to Funhouse. Was Funhouse the one?
Funhouse
No,
first half was dream sequences, and then
yeah,
and then
yeah.
the second half we got to the reality of Big P.
Because the similarities obviously in Test Dream, he finds out what Tony B did
Oh, I don't
about
like
his
that one.
dreams.
I don't like that
You
one.
don't like that one?
Because it belabored the point that we already knew Tony knew he was gonna have to do. I think they pussyfooted on that to me.
But I guess we didn't know. That's the one thing about Test Dream. We didn't know because remember he thought it was Phil.
Okay.
And remember Chris came to the hotel at like super early.
Mm-hmm.
Said, "Man, I got some news, some bad news. Tony B did
Mm-hmm.
this, like Billy Leotardo." He said, "You mean Philly Leotardo?" Because his dream had told him it was Phil.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting. I want to talk about it with you too.
But I'm gonna be open
when
to
we
it.
get there.
Yeah,
but the 6A dream sequences are good, especially when it takes a couple watches.
Yep.
to really realize what's going on. And once you do, I think it's brilliant.
I got a whole hot take. It'll be for something later, but 6A and B works like Kendrick Lamar's Damn album. You could play it
Mm,
in you could play it in reverse.
mm.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
I can't wait to hear more about this. I love it.
Yep.
I love it. Okay, then.
Yeah.
But yeah, the dream sequences are something I'm actually looking forward to talking to. I have never said that about Sopranos,
Mm-hmm.
but the last three that we have, I'm very interested, especially the whole Kevin Finnerty thing
Yeah. Yep.
and all that goes into that. So I got a lot of digging and research to do,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm looking forward to getting into that.
Mm-hmm.
As far as episodes go, most anticipated episodes that I'm looking forward to discussing,
Mm-hmm.
I've already mentioned a regular around the margins.
Yep.
That is just, I can't wait to get both of your opinions on that episode
Mm-hmm.
and that scenario, what you would think, what you would do.
Mm-hmm.
Even Tony having to have Carmela bail him out at the end of the episode. It's oh man, it's just a lot. It's one of my favorite episodes. You mentioned Marco Polo. I think that's a real good one.
Mm-hmm.
Long-term parking, of course,
Mm-hmm.
along with all due respect. Those are all season 5. When we get into season 6A, now one thing I do want to ask you about very briefly, we don't have to spend a lot of time on this.
Mm-hmm.
Eugene.
Okay.
Did that seem weird to you? Just the whole Eugene episode. We start out 6A with that inheritance and how he ends everything. Like, well,
You saying like did it not further anything, like the story at all? Like we spent
it
time with
just
the character.
felt weird because we didn't really spend any time with Eugene. We knew him.
Do you think there would have been
I
a
think
better character that would have worked for? Maybe like a Patsy?
a Patsy, maybe. Yeah,
Mhm.
but Patsy doesn't. I think Patsy had enough to where we knew he carried it a certain way from that
Okay.
whole Gloria
Oh,
thing.
so he wouldn't have never, he would never turn.
I guess the thing is, yeah, because he turned and it's just we'll talk about when we get there. The Eugene
Okay.
storyline and that one episode, most people, even Vito got an arc. Like a
It's
couple,
it just seemed like they wanted to touch on a specific issue that hasn't been fully.
which is like, well, how do you retire from this?
Yeah, well, okay. I guess there's that. I was just thinking more like on the. I just go ahead and say it again, spoiler episode, but like suicide. Like I think that is something they wanted. I mean, there was an early, I think season 1, where Tony was talking to Chris in a car, and he says, "Have you ever thought about?" And he did like the gun in the mouth gesture, and that was probably the only thing they ever talked like reference into, like pretty much ending your own life. So I think that was something that they definitely wanted to visit. Of course, we're going to get some stuff with AJ that kind of really play into that as well. So. But yeah, it is kind of weird. But maybe now that we can track it a little better, reviewing it, and we've seen Eugene a few times, I think maybe it'll track different.
Yeah, see, I like that episode more from the retirement part of it. That's the fascinating part for me.
Yeah.
And just like you took an oath, like, and just really like, can I get out? Like it's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
What else do we have? It's not like a good. I don't even know if it's gonna be a good earner. It might just be just another envelope.
Mm-hmm.
The fleshy part of the thigh.
I got in there
for Bobby, and this is what Bobby's on in that episode is hilarious to me.
Yeah, getting a quick racket off real quick.
Yeah, Mr. and Mrs. John Sacramone, which I think is probably one of the most underrated episodes. I'm not saying nobody doesn't think it's good, but it's really good. There's a lot of layers that go into that episode.
Shout out to Steve Buscemi.
Shout out to Steve Buscemi. Like I said, that's where the Vito thing comes to fruition. I'm trying to think of what else.
Well, that Kaisha, ain't that when Chris starts to date him and Tony mess with the same Gumar or whatever?
Yes.
That's a small little nugget. I like that.
Yeah, that one. And then I obviously 6B, you can just the end of this incredible series.
Cleaver. How could we forget Cleaver, bro? Luxury Lounge.
Yeah, Cleaver, Luxury Lounge, that's good. But no, the Cleaver's, are you talking about the Cleaver
just storyline
Carmine, or are you talking about the actual premiere?
With the whole
Cleaver, the Cleaver storyline. Yeah,
just the storyline. Yeah, Cleaver. Yeah, I like that.
That's an important one. That's an important one. But obviously, if I had to pick one of 6B, you know what I'm going with. Blue Comet.
Blue Comet.
Blue Comet is, yeah, that's one of my favorite, if not my favorite episode of Sopranos. So I'm more, like I said, the whole 6B, but Blue Comet specifically. Those are
Yeah.
the episodes that I'm most looking forward to discussing on Good Earners.
Mm-hmm.
What say you?
For the most part, I probably just to say some different ones because the things you said were definitely that for me. Sentimental Education. I think that's what we talked about, the Wegler. Actually, I'm anxious to see Camelot.
Is that Kung Pao Coochie? That's the sentimental education. Is that episode what Chris said, trying to get some of that Kung Pao
yo, he is. Chris, bro, he's terrible. Like the words he used sometimes, like coochie is crazy. But in Camelot, I think it's a
hold on.
bad.
He said, hold on, talk about he said, they got a dog parlor. They got a dog parlor next door in case anybody wants a snack.
He's terrible. He's terrible.
They awful, man.
Every race get it on this show. So y'all just don't be sensitive. But yeah, like I said, I probably say Camelot is known as the worst episode. So I'll be very interested to see how we do it. And most times, bad episodes are the ones we have the most fun on for some reason. So there's that. I would say, yeah, like we talked about that whole run. The members only join the club, Mayhem and Fleshy Part. That's like a whole series in itself. Luxury Lounge, definitely that. Like I said, The Ride is there. I like the little Kaisha Sopranos home videos. Remember when I like the Paulie and the little buddy cop thing with Paulie and Tony kind of for a moment. It's really fun.
Walk Like a Man.
Kennedy, Walk Like a Man.
Good one too.
Kennedy and Heidi though, not in the way they deal with it. They deal with it so differently from any other series. They got it out the way early and said, no, we care more about this part. And so that's the trickiest part about that. Like that, the way they did that. And then we get I get it, that whole, what does that mean? So there's, that deep psychological thing with that episode. And of course, Made in America, man. Don't stop, believe it. Cut the black.
Nah, like 6B.
They bodying it.
6B, they knocking them out the park. Now the only misstep that some people might say, and it's up there with Camelot, is
chasing it. Yep.
Which is one of my I do enjoy when you just talk about Tony just being a dickhead.
Yeah, just straight trash.
He just straight trash.
Yeah.
I am curious to revisit that because I haven't watched that episode in full in a while. I go on YouTube sometimes. The Ritz. Bro, he's not here to play. He's here to collect the rent.
And I can't wait to figure out what happened with old girl. You know what I mean? How did that? Yeah, I'd definitely be anxious to see because I never knew. But yeah.
Yeah, man. So those are the ones I'm looking forward to. This one a little bit longer than I anticipated, but it's always good talking to you, my brother.
Yeah, you as well, brother.
I don't just something to hold y'all over until we get back into the season 5, episode 3, which will be coming next week for you. We'll make sure we have that on the timeline. What's the name of that episode? It's going to be Where's Johnny?
Where's Johnny? I think I got idea.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff, man. There's a lot of stuff to look forward to.
Yeah,
these last 32 episodes are really going to be a lot of fun. Of course, talking to my brothers, Mo and Spike Lou,
yes, sir,
about them. Yeah, that's pretty much all I had, Mo. That's all I had for the Back of the Bean episode today.
No, I like it. I think that was good. I think again, I listened to it. I already know it's spoilers, but I enjoyed this conversation. We could obviously do this for a whole nother hour. Like we just love talking Sopranos. So, I enjoyed this. Of course, record with you. Shouts out to Spike Lou, our third brother of this glorified podcast crew. Man, this has been dope, bro.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate all y'all out there listening. And like Mo says, don't forget about it.